Hello students, welcome to arrival of Mughal Empire in India. Okay, so we're going to talk about three Mughal emperors today, just three, and their stories, and you will learn what they did in a story form rather than some random facts. Before I talk about those three emperors, I wanted to talk about their ancestor and who came to India, and his name is Timur, 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 and it's in the top, Timur. Okay, he's also called in the West as Tamerlane in English, Tamar, the second word, because Tamar, lame, Lame, he was limping because of a battle wound, so they called him Tamerlane instead of lame. Okay, and what did he do? He is from Samarkand, which is a city in Uzbekistan in Central Asia. If you look it up, Samarkand. He was a tribal, small tribal clan. He came from a warrior. He's a warlord basically, and he gathered forces. These are nomadic people who gathered in horses and went and waged war, relentless war. He conquered and defeated many powerful empires. One of them is the Byzantine Empire. Okay, another one is the Egyptian Mameluke Sultanate. I mean, Mamelukes, I don't need to explain because I have done in the previous lectures. So you know the slave practice, taking the slave, taking a person from a family and having it, raising them to be a service to the emperor and the kingdom. And they have duties as a soldier, martial duties. So Mamelukes, right? And he defeated them. And he was something he did that is why we are discussing this in this class about India. He came from there, from Samarkand, Central Asia, into India. And I said he's a warlord. He's ferocious in his battles. And he defeated Tughlaq cavalry. Tughlaq, we talked about Muhammad bin Tughlaq, right? One of the prominent ones of the Tughlaq dynasties. Remember, we talked about the Delhi Sultanate, which is like the 5 dynasties, right? The Khilji, the slave dynasty, the first one, the Khilji, the Tughlaq dynasty, the third, the fourth one. We talked about the Lodi dynasty, the 5th one, right? So all this, one of the cavalries he faced and he destroyed in 1398 to 1399. He came into India and massacred 80,000 inhabitants of Delhi. Beheaded, and he likes to pile up the heads. I know it's morally wrong in modern times to kill non-combatants. These are not soldiers, civilians, but that's what they did. And not only kill, but also destroy property completely, which it took almost 100 years for Delhi to regain all what it has lost from the property damages and other things. When he left, it was like a graveyard, which was completely stinking with dead bodies for months, with animals eating the carcasses. I don't want to go into the details. Some other historians describe the horrors he did, Tamerlane. And he was thinking about invading China. Lucky for China that he died earlier. So Tamerlane is one of the prominent figures of that time period that I'm talking about. This particular lecture, I'm going to be focusing from 1300 in India to about 1605 till the third Mughal Emperor, Akbar, we're going to be talking about. So now, after Tamerlane, post Tamerlane, right down there, I'm going to discuss 5 points, 5 important points that are relevant to what this time period happened from 1300 to the 1605. Okay, write down this. This period is called post Tamerlane. Okay, post Tamerlane. After Tamerlane came and conquered, killed, sacked, and then he went away. What did he do? What happened? Okay, post Tamerlane period. First one, because the empire was large, right, and the empire started to disintegrate. Muhammad bin Tughlaq's empire was the largest in the zenith of power. After that, it started disintegrating. So the first point is many governors started to declare independence from the Delhi rule. And so many small kingdoms started happening, individual sovereignty. Okay, so it was not like one central power ruling all over most of India. Because of the destruction happened by Tamerlane's impact, that it started to disintegrate. Many small governors feel that they could be independent. Central government doesn't have the power. So like, for example, if I have to say New York becoming independent from Washington's control, and it's saying like it's its own autonomy country, and Florida, Texas, all going away. Can you imagine? So it's like that small city governments and other things were formed. Second point, it disrupted trade lines. Trade lines. What do you mean trade lines? It disrupted because many of the governors started independently ruling. It's not like one monolithic government ruling that central power. So Gujarat, if you look it up in the map, you have to know that Gujarat, where the current prime minister comes from, that state, which Gandhi comes from also, which is close to the Arabian Ocean, Gujarat become independent from the central power. So because of that, remember the war horses for the Muhammad bin Tughlaq, where did it come from? From trading, right? From foreign countries, right? Central Asia and other places. So it came through Arabian Ocean, sea, right? In the sea, and come to Gujarat. And from Gujarat, the war horses have been taken to the Delhi and used for war purposes, because India didn't have war horses. India had a lot of elephants. So because the trade lines were disrupted, now this new kings have to depend on war elephants more than using the horses, war horses. That's true. Number three is Rajput lineages started happening. Rajput, how do you spell? R-A-J-P-U-T. R-A-J-P-U-T. Rajput lineages. And this is even now present Rajputs, okay? And these are powerful martial quality, means like soldierly, right? And it's beautiful. I didn't know this until I started reading about them. They were nomadic in nature, and they were not called Rajputs. They were like a tribesmen, pastoral. Pastoral means what? Like agricultural nomads. So they didn't stay put in a place and domesticate animals and practice. So they were constantly moving. And only in the 11th century, the name Rajput itself came. What Rajput means what? Rajput means Raja. My mother used to call me Raja. That's my another pet name. Raja, R-A-J-A. Raja means king. Okay? Like Martin Luther King, king. And Put, P-U-T. It's actually short form of Putra. P-U-T-R-A. Putra. So Putra means son. So Raja Putra. That means king's son. So Rajput means king's son. Even though these guys were not kings, they were nomadic pastoral people, but because if you say king, that's very high in the totem pole. So they have many poets, okay? They started writing and recording these lineages and gave them in poetry form these titles, which so that it gives them a higher in the totem pole in the society. So they become Kshatriyas. You know, Kshatriyas means warrior, kings, right? So these guys, now they're not practicing nomadic pastoral, but they are put down and doing agriculture, and happen to have, this happened, where did it happen? It happened in Gujarat, the state, right? And Rajasthan. So it's basically north and northwest of India, Rajasthan and Malwa. So these three places, these Rajputs started coming. This is post-Tamerlane. So that's the third point. The fourth point is political capital. Political capital, write it down. Political capital is not just, so what is political capital? Is like if a president gets elected, He has support. The first 100 days is the honeymoon time in America, right? For the president, new president. His political capital gets dwindling based on what he is spending on. Basically, it's like poll numbers are high and support decreases. The political capital in this period for kings were based not just, one is money, how much wealth they have in their treasury. The second is how big is their family connection. So the Rajputs, having a large family connections, will have more political capital, power to influence. And third is women. Why women? So so making deals, negotiations, they will intermarry women. So if I have a daughter, I will get my daughter married to someone. If I'm a king and I have a daughter married to someone who the other king who might actually be intended to fight with me. If I marry, then it becomes family. So there's no fighting and it becomes larger. So if I don't have many women, then I can't make the political influence. So political capital become these groups of these three. And the fifth point, this is the time period, there was a spurt, Mughal period, spurt of vernacular writing, written language, okay, written vernacular language, Sanskrit, okay, and you got it, Persian. I talked about in previous lecture, Persian becoming the lingua franca of government, even in Marco Polo visited China, they used, and in Mughal period. Okay, so those 5 things happened. Now let's move on to, I talked about Timur. Now I'm going to talk about 3 emperors. Just that's it. Mughal emperors. Where did they come from? How did they get to India? What did they do? That's the story. I'll tell you in story form. First one, write it down. Babur. B-A-B-U-R. Babur. Babur is a name for like a lion, okay, or tiger. Babur is not from India. He is from Samarkand, okay? Yes, the same place as Tamerlane. But many generations later, right? Babur, many generations later. Like to be precise, he is related to Tamerlane, his father's side. So Babur's father was the great grandson of Tamerlane. Great grandson of Tamerlane, Babur's father. And he's also linked to the very famous, world famous conqueror, Genghis Khan, Mongol ruler Genghis Khan. I don't know how many of you know about him. Many books have been written about Genghis Khan. He's a world conqueror. He changed the world, and many popular New York Times bestseller books are there. But in a couple of lines, he went and conquered Baghdad and many places. Same from the nomadic tribes in horseback. And Tamerlane did something the Genghis Khan didn't do. Genghis Khan did not come in, the Mongols did not come in and conquer India, but they conquered a large part of the world. In fact, Genghis Khan, individual, he raped a lot of women conquering time. You know, the atrocities they do. You could find a huge, significant portion of European DNA with Genghis Khan's gene alone. You could Google how much percentage of all those things. Now, Genghis Khan is related to Babur in the mother 14 generations. 14 generations away is Genghis Khan, okay, for Babur. Now, Babur took pride in being connected to Tamerlane, okay? My battery says it's low, okay. Maybe I'll connect it while I talk with you. Okay, sorry about that. I don't want the battery to die when I'm teaching. Okay, now, so Genghis Khan and Tamerlane are related to Babur. Babur in Samarkand was kicked out. Why did he get kicked out of his own kingdom? Well, they have a term, write it down, collective security. Collective security. Many brothers, if you have siblings, the siblings will fight with you for the kingdom. Whoever is strong will take over. And because of it and other problems rising, he lost ruling Samarkand. So he came down to Afghanistan, modern day Kabul. Okay, and then also it's Kabul. And there was a ruler unpopular. Babur was able to kick him out and stay there. Okay, listen, follow the story from Samarkand. And in Kabul, he was watching, trade caravans are going up and down. What do you mean going up and down? From north to west, okay? And from south to north. So, sorry, east to west, north to south. This became the central point. Where is it going? Well, from India, textiles were going out and war horses were bought. Okay? Yes, previously we talked about in Arabian Sea, they were buying. So now through landmark, they're buying. And so between Central Asia and between Iran and Afghanistan, the connection to India. So he saw the wealth of India in the caravan transportation going in Kabul. So he got eager and greedy, and he wanted to conquer and take some of that money. Just like we talked about 11th century Muhammad Ghazni. Remember? We talked about in previous. But these guys came in, took the money of India from the temples, and went to use that money for their further conquest west or east. But here, Babur came in. He doesn't have a proper place. He lost his own place, Samarkand. So he came down, and few times he invaded India. Fifth time when he invaded successfully, he faced the Ibrahim. Write it down. Samarkand is, by the way, that is the place spelled properly in Uzbekistan, where Babur is from. And he faced Ibrahim Lodi, who is the last ruler of the Lodi dynasty from the Delhi Sultanate, Ibrahim Lodi, in a battle, Panipat. Panipat. All right, spell it, Panipat. Are you following the story? Panipat. And Ibrahim Lodi is from India. Population is high, and he has elephants, okay? He had like 1,000 war elephants. He had 100,000 men. Yeah, big empire, Delhi Sultanate. And here comes this guy who had 12,000 people, Babur. Yeah, that's like odds are 10 times against you in man-to-man kind of count. But he had something, Babur had something that Lodi dynasty didn't have. And that is revolution in military affairs, RMA. That is military technology. Two things he had. One is cannons, C-A-N-N-O-N, gunpowder, boom, boom, like balls will fire, boom, at the enemy, right? This was shocking even the elephants will be afraid and start running everywhere. And then match lock, like tennis match, lock, like a lock, put them together, match lock, one word. What is match lock? If you Google, you'll see it's like the beginning of guns. But early guns, two people, one person has to hold it, another person has to light up like that. This is like one person can handle it, looking at who is coming at them and shoot. Okay? It made it easy. And with this 12,000 people, with this technology, he was able to beat Lodi, the Indian emperor. And because of beating, he came and settled down in India. Okay? He settled down in India. And what time period? That's a good question. This battle happened in 1526. Write it down. 1526, because you need to know. And Babur was doing this invasion about the age of 42. He was 42 years, okay? And these two things, technologies, made them win the battle. And now, he didn't kill everybody like Tamerlane did, because his goal was not to just sack the city and go back, take the treasures with them and go back. He wanted to stay there and rule. He's from somewhere else. To rule in the sensitive area, he got to be good. Because he already in one of the battles, he was doing a lot of battles, okay? And he faced one of the Rajput families. And He killed Rana Sangh, R-A-N-A, first word. Second, Sangh, last name is S-A-N-G-H, Rana Sangh, a Rajput. He killed him in the battle. And so now he knows he cannot just go around killing kings and stay in power because they're going to come together and kill him. So he wants to maintain peace. Even for Lodi's mother, the Ibrahim Lodi he defeated in battle, the mother, he gave a pension and make her stay even in the same palace where Babur stayed. Okay, so now Babur, okay, Babur put down India. Even though he stayed in India, he started putting down India. In what way he put down? He said, "What is this place? It doesn't have good grapes. It doesn't have good melons, fruits, because he comes from Afghanistan, which is known for good grapes and melons and snowy, cold weather. India is dry, especially in Delhi, and arid climate compared to Afghanistan, which is like cold weather. And he felt like people here value things differently. Okay, I'll come to it. And no good horses, not melons, fruits. But he's also talking about India doesn't have good horses. Yes, but India had war elephants. He saw the difference, wealth appreciated from where he comes from Central Asia, in Samarkand. They value movable assets, goats, camels, horses, all those things. In India, he saw they value immovable assets, assets that are not like moving like animals. They are textiles, manufacturing goods, precious raw materials like gold and other things. So the things value were different. Even if you go to now to certain parts of the world, things they value are different. Like even 50, 60 years ago, you go to Maasai warriors, they value cows. Even now, certain tribes, Eastern Africa, they value cows. And if you're a rich man, you will have a lot of cows. Not like Amazon Bezos, you will have a lot of stock value. It's totally different, right? And so you go to my mom, she will say gold is the value. So it varies. My mom in India, South India. So it varies, okay? And so he saw the difference in this cultural, from movable versus immovable assets. So he fought one time when he was fighting Rana Sangha as the Ghazi, Ghazi. Ghazi means like this holy warrior, Muslim holy warrior fighting against the Hindu Rajput kings. Rajputs are Hindus, Hindu kings. And I'm going to wage a holy war, jihad. And then he dropped that after killing Rana Sangha because he doesn't want to bring in the middle of Hindu kings this Muslim religious problems. So even in his time period there, he did not build any prominent monuments other than 3 mosques, Muslim mosques in Panipat, the place where he fought with Lodi, Ibrahim Lodi. Panipat is spelled P-A-N-I-P-A-T. I showed you in the board. Okay, Panipat. Another one, important one, is Ayodhya. This is important for modern Indian context. Why? I'll tell you. Ayodhya. Okay. This place, Babur built an Islamic mosque. In the 1990s, the conservative political party, modern India, conservative Hindu fanatic political party called BJP, which is in power right now, the Prime Minister and his cabinet comes from BJP, they went and destroyed the mosque. Why did they destroy the mosque? They destroyed the mosque saying that mosque was built by Muslims in a place, Ayodhya, which was the birthplace of Hindu god Rama, R-A-M-A. Remember the Hindu god Rama in Ramayana? When I talked about Hindu text, Ramayana, same Hindu god which Gandhi said, hey Ram, when he was shot. Those were his last words. It's a Hindu god. So the Hindu group went and marched and destroyed Babri Masjid, the place, that mosque is called Babri Masjid. If you want to see further, you go. By the way, the case went on in the courts for so long. The Babri Masjid's destroyers were acquitted, completely free of any charges, because there was no evidence, even though there was so much reporting and other things. So this happened a couple of days ago. It was in newspaper, Washington Post and others. Babri Masjid's destroyers were acquitted completely. So it's a very political, highly tense political situation. But at the time when he built the mosque, he's not going to be thinking about the future, that he built the mosque. And Babur, okay, had a son named Humayun, Humayun. He's the oldest son. And this is important because Babur wanted his son Humayun to take over power, okay? And there were, even though collective security is there, which means other brothers will want that. So Babur gave them power to one other brother of Humayun in Gujarat, another brother power in Kabul. Remember Kabul where he was ruling? So he gave that, and he gave the most of the kingdom to Humayun. Okay? And now, Humayun, let's talk about Humayun. How do you spell it? Humayun. Now, Babur, there's a story I want to say. I'm thinking in what angle to say. Humayun was actually sick at one point, okay? And Babur wants his older son to recover so that he could rule after him. So he goes around his bed and prays, coming around and saying 3 times, praying to God. It's actually called circumambulatory. It's like circumference, an ambulation movement, circumambulatory. He 3 times comes around the bed and says, God, you could take my life in exchange for my son's. Please save him. And luckily, Humayun comes, his illness goes away and he recovers. After that, within short time, Babur dies. Yeah. And Babur had a request before dying, and that was to be buried in Kabul. So he was buried in a garden in Kabul in 1530. So he didn't rule India. See, 1525 he made the invasion. 1530 he died. It's not long, 5 years. But let's look at Humayun. We got only Humayun and then Akbar. These are the 2 kings. Humayun has an interesting story. Let's see. Now, Humayun's brothers want the full kingdom. They're ready in the Turco-Mongol, Turco means Turkish, Turco-Mongol fashion, collective security. They wanted to fight and take back the whole thing, whoever wins, rather than the older one inheriting, right? And even in Europe, it's the whole wealth of the father will go to the oldest son, even if you go to the same time period. That's why the Spaniard conquistadors, many of them who went to conquer in Inca Empire, were not the firstborn, because they're later borns who couldn't afford to have anything, so they want to take risk. Anyway, that's a different story, but for you to understand in comparative context. So now, Humayun is facing 2 of his brothers. And Humayun is more of a scholar than like Babur, a warrior. He loves to read. He had a huge library collection, and he collects and reads them. And now there's a fight breaks out between these 2 brothers, and Humayun goes to put down the fight in Gujarat with the other brother. Meanwhile, that brother flees because Humayun is coming with a big force. And many other officers who ran from Gujarat, one of them, his name is Sher Shah. Let me write it down for you. Sher. Oh. Sorry. Sher. S-H-E-R. S-H-E-R. S-H-A-H. Sher. First name is Sher. S-H-E-R. Shah is Shah. Sher Shah. Okay. And who's this Sher Shah? This officer is very good in terms of military tactics. And while Humayun is cautious and thinks about whether to fight now or later, Sher Shah plunges in battle. He's a very great administrator. Okay, and there was a fight battle between Sher Shah and Humayun. In that, Sher Shah destroys Humayun's army, and narrowly Humayun will escape with his life. In fact, across the river, he will use an animal skin to get some air and float on that, lie on that, and cross the river. And then he will escape with small contingent force, people in horses, across the Thar Desert, scorched heat. Thar Desert is a desert in India. He walks through that, and his wife's horse, whose wife was pregnant, okay, pregnant with the future emperor Akbar, and her horse dies. Then Humayun gives his own horse to her, and as one of his commanders, commander give the horse to Humayun, and the commander could ride on a camel. The commander will say, no, that shows how the power is declining, because the emperor doesn't have any treasury, no soldiers, very few people, even some robbers could have taken them out and killed. And that's the case. But Humayun ended up riding the camel in desperate need, going through Thar Desert. He goes to West Afghanistan, to the mountains, to go into Iran to ask for help from Iranian emperor. And while he's going there in the mountain path, he's starving, and they have to kill one of the horses and eat horse meat cooked in helmets. The helmets they wear, and they eat cooked horse meat in a desperate situation for an emperor of such a powerful empire. Okay, and then finally he reaches Iran and asks the emperor who just converted most of his kingdom to Shia religion, wants Humayun to convert to Shia. There's two divisions, Sunni, Shia. I talked about that in the last lecture, that division, right? Shia, and he will help him. He said, okay. And then he gives him 10,000 cavalrymen to fight against Sher Shah. And so he gathers this 10,000. He's marching back to fight Sher Shah. Meanwhile, Sher Khan, okay? Sher Khan, it means also tiger or lion, okay? I don't know how many of you saw Jungle Book. The tiger's name is Sher Khan. The villain tiger is trying to eat the baby. Okay, side note. He comes to Sher Khan, who rules. He's a great administrator. He created a great prosperity, peace, and also a clear administrative system based on merit in his empire, the Humayun Empire, which he left. And he introduces a monetary system to control the economic problems, and it's called Rupiah, Rupia. And guess what? The modern Indian government money is rupees, Rupees, came from Sher Khan. Okay. He is even portrayed in India's stamp in 1970. If you Google, you will see. Okay. I just hope to spell the name correctly, Sher Khan, so that you could Google and look at the stamp. Okay. And his dynasty is called Sur dynasty, S-U-R. Okay. He created orderly government, peace, stability, prosperity, all those things. Now, he gets into an accident, a cannon, boom, boom, the cannon accident, and dies. And so the Humayun doesn't need to fight him, luckily. Humayun comes back, takes his empire very easily. but but he dies 6 months into recapturing his empire. Okay, how does Humayun die? I was reading in a book, and he goes and gets his books from the library, and he was carrying a lot of books in his hands, and he was trying to climb down from the top shelf steps, and his dress, they wear long dresses. You could Google and see long dresses. One of the long dresses steps him, and he stumbles, and he falls, and he hits his forehead on a stone. Boom, Mayan dies. A great emperor didn't die in battle, but dies when he was carrying too many books. He couldn't put his hand, or whatever the reason. Anyway, so his son, a teenager, Akbar, remember the wife was pregnant when they were going to Iran for asking for help? He was born while they were coming back to India in such a impoverished state. The son was born, Akbar, but he is the first Indian emperor, full and full. Akbar, you spell him as Akbar. Akbar. Akbar is called Akbar the Great. The Great. He is the emperor, even in modern times, scholars talk about. There are exclusive books written on him. Because Babur has written his own biography, own memoir called Babur Nama. Nama, N-A-M-A. Babur Nama. You could look it up. If you're interested, you could read that. And here, Akbar the Great, many books have been written on Akbar. He's a Muslim king, but I'm going to talk about his religious, his openness, his brilliance. Is first and foremost, he's very, very intelligent. Not only intelligent, prodigious memory. However, he had a problem called dyslexia, not diagnosed at the time, but modern scholars think dyslexia, which means what? Which means you cannot read or write and learn. So he had problems reading and learning, but listening, and that's what sometimes I recommend audiobooks to my students. If you listen, some students who have dyslexia didn't even know they had dyslexia. You could learn better through the audiobooks than to reading from a book. Anyway, so he was prodigious in his memory and great intelligence, and he moved the capital from Delhi to Agra, the Mughal capital. Okay, and I'm going to talk about some of the important points about him. Okay, and he conquered the Rajputs. Yeah, the Rajputs were not able to be conquered by not even Delhi Sultanate, any of them, Khiljis, Tughlaqs, you name it, Lodis, none were able to conquer. Akbar conquered them. How did he conquer? Yeah, carrot and stick. Write it down. Carrot and stick method. Carrot. This is like a modern idiom and phrase. Carrot means to dangle money or beneficial gifts or anything to give, to lure, right? Or stick is hurting, so threatening with force. So here, his force threatening is with the military. You will wage war. If not, you could marry into Akbar. And how? He's a Muslim, right? You might think. And Rajputs are Hindus. But many Rajputs were willing to give their daughters to be married into Akbar's. Akbar is a Mughal emperor. He had a harem of women. You want to know the numbers? 300 to 5,000 it grew. 5,000. I don't know how he meets women by names. He probably remember by number. Don't ask me those questions. But the women in the harem brought different ethnic cultures with them. So Hindu cultures were brought into the Mughal rule. And so because of that, slowly many Rajputs were there, small kingdoms, right? Except one big one which didn't want to marry with him and kept fighting. And all the other small ones married into Akbar. And because of marrying in its family, now the Rajput members become part of the fighting units of Akbar. That's a smart man. So he doesn't need to do it through stick. He did it through carrot. not only getting peace with them, is indirect rule. So Rajputs are ruling it. He also did not violate their autonomy. That means they could make their decisions inside their kingdom. Just because you're family, you don't go and insert your opinions. Whatever they rule inside their kingdom, that's theirs. And you get fighting men from them for Akbar's conquest further. And also he did not violate their religious interest, which is they want to be Hindus. They do not want to be changed into Islam. Whereas if you look at Babur or others was fanatic about, right? More important fanatic is Aurangzeb, it's going to come, which is a later emperor. But Akbar was very open about religion. I'll talk about Akbar's religious views soon. But now the beauty is you don't want to fight this Rajputs. Rajputs, if you fight the Rajputs, they had a culture of stand and fight till the end sometime. Like for example, and one of the times, and later future emperors have seen it, Akbar himself have seen it, they will go inside their kingdom and kill, in their Rajput family, kill all the women. Why would they kill the women? So that if defeated, they don't want to be conquered by the winning victorious army, raped or anything. For honor's sake, they will kill all the women. And what about the men? The men will take off all the dresses, wear some loincloth like thing, put powder, and with sword and shield, they will come to do the last stand, fight to death. I mean, how it's hard to defeat an army like that, who are willing to die and fight so hard. So Akbar's moves are brilliant, in my personal opinion, making peace through marriage. And he did that. And at the same time, he did not sacrifice their autonomy and sacrifice their religious practices. Okay. And what did Akbar get? Not only he got military men from Rajputs, but he also got a counterweight, because Akbar inherited from Humayun this military which was dominated by Turco-Mongol people who was unruly. Now Rajputs very organized, proper, and so they did it was a counterweight to the Turco-Mongol units. Understand? And now the Akbar created a meritocratic system rather than like based on, oh, he's Muslim, I'll promote him. Oh, he's relative. No, meritocratic system. Mansabar. I'll write down. Mansdari system. Is one word. Mansabdari. Mansabar Dari system. Write down. Okay. And through this system, it's meritocratic rather than like based on family or anything. And his empire grew larger and larger. He went and conquered Kashmir. Kashmir was, remember, was not conquered by any of the Delhi sultanates. One of the reasons is because it was in the mountainous region in the middle, and Akbar was able to do that. And also he took over Gujarat, okay, and eastern Afghanistan. Akbar's empire grew. Here's an important point. It's not like a Leviathan. Leviathan is the book written by Thomas Hobbes. For those political science students, you know. It's not like a juggernaut going and crushing, taking over everything. It was his officers' intelligence as peacemakers in those smaller regions and connecting and bringing everybody into this organization, which is in the top is the emperor. And I want to bring a lighter note to Akbar so you understand about Akbar. Akbar one time was going with his officers into the forest, and he was lost after hunting, coming back, and he was asking, there was a guy walking in the road, nobody was there in the forest, and they asked Akbar and his entourage, asked the guy, hey, do you know this road goes to this town? And they're like, he said, road doesn't go anywhere. You have to go. And the people, entourage said, do you know who you're talking to? That's the emperor, Akbar. And the guy said, I'm sorry. Even for an emperor, the road won't go. You have to go. And it's comedy in, if you translate it, it's lost in translation. That guy's name is Birbal, Birbal. Other emperors would have been offended and asked him to be beheaded, but Akbar is like, oh, this guy, I like him. So he took him into his empire and made him part of his empire. Birbal, there are stories, books written on Birbal and Akbar's accounts. Okay, another story I'll tell you, short one, of Birbal's intelligence, wit, and wisdom. Akbar one day got up and came to his balcony and was looking at the river, Yamuna, and there was a washerman washing there and saw Akbar, and he just bowed because he's seeing Emperor's face. And Akbar salutes him back, goes back, and he stubs his feet and bleeds. People come to help Akbar, and he said that, oh, I saw this guy and I was thinking about him, came in and stubbed my feet. And then soldiers go and arrest this guy, and he was given a severe sentence. And the washerman's wife comes and pleads to Birbal. Birbal comes to the court, and look what he is doing. Sir, I heard this story that the man is going to get an Akbar. Is really? And yeah, but I'm worried more the people. I understand those who punished the washerman, the soldiers thought like he brought bad omen by looking at his face. You got a bad omen, the emperor, and you stubbed your feet. But I am worried about what people are going to think after this guy gets the severe punishment, because they will think by looking at your face, this guy got a bad omen and getting punishment worse than the stubbing of the feet. And then emperor laughs and acquits the person to be not to be punished in any way. So Birbal is very justice conscious, and also is a wit and wisdom, helped Akbar. Akbar didn't think of anything different and treated everyone equal, and religiously he was beyond his time. In what way? Let's talk about Akbar's religions. There are 5 points. Write it down. The first one time when he was coming back from hunting, he saw sati, S-A-T-I, the practice of sati, Hinduism. Their husband dies, wife, have to join the fire pyre, which is burning the dead body of the husband. She has to join that life. Has to burn with that, right? Akbar said, that's prohibited. I won't allow that. Okay. And the second one is, and he said, put a decree not to let the practice go on in his kingdom. Second one, he let scholars of different religions, Hinduism, Islam, Buddhism, Zoroastrianism, Jainism, all debate, and he will listen to it like a scholar, open to all ideas. Akbar even created his own form of religion. Okay, it's amazing. He was open to different religions rather than sticking to Islam as the only form of religion, the true religion as it claims. But he was open, and that actually created irritation for some of the Islamic scholars in his court, but he was open. The third one, Akbar abolished jizya. Jizya is a tax put on non-Muslims. Jizya is a tax put on non-Muslims by Muslim emperors, put on non-Muslims, people, the public. But he abolished that. He's saying like, no, they shouldn't be treated differently just because they are different religion. Fourth point, he banned killing of cows and peacocks. He banned killing of cows and peacocks. Cows are a sacred thing for Hindus. Okay? Not all Hindus, there's a difference. Some of the untouchables eat and clean cows, dead cows. But if there's a problem even now in modern India, 21st century, the BJP party in power do not want cows to be slaughtered in many of the northern states, and some of them critics call them cow vigilantes, who go and hurt people who are trying to eat cows, the cow meat. Dead cow dies of natural cause. If they eat the meat, they still hurt them, saying cow is a sacred thing. Akbar was a Muslim, and the Muslims eat cows, even modern India. But he banned killing cows because it's a sacred thing for Hindus. So being acceptance, not just tolerance. And peacocks. Okay, peacock is now a national bird, modern India. The fifth point, he memorized about 1,001 ways to say the sun's name, different names in Sanskrit. Sanskrit is usually the language of the Hindus and the Brahmins. This is a Persian, right? Muslims practice used Persian language, but he was open. That shows his openness completely. And modern times, there's a lot of conflict that Akbar, rewritten history, that Akbar was a tyrannical Muslim ruler who destroyed many Hindu temples. That's many of the Hindutva, the Hinduness political party, and their followers say, according to critics. But many scholars who write about Akbar say he was very open and tolerant. Now, coming to the end, it's time. So from Babur time, 1526 he came. Akbar died around 1605. Akbar died. He ruled almost 50 years. Akbar ruled almost half a century because, he was coming to power as a teenager. So half a century. It was a great empire. Now, the empire is fully grown. Now we're going to see about Jahangir, Shah Jahan, Aurangzeb, 3 more emperors next class. And following that, other smaller ones and the British rule. Good luck.